Hello, everyone. I'm Ram Oculee, founder and CEO of Confidence Wealth. I'm here with our Chief Protection Strategist, Brian Kelca. And today we're going to talk about the 9 pitfalls business owners incur throughout their partnerships. And we're going to give you some solutions and suggestions as how you can prevent them. So, business owners face many problems. And one of the problems they face is issues that surround business partnerships and ramifications of those partnerships. Sometimes they can be positive, sometimes they can be negative. And the purpose of this discussion is to go through some of these things and see how you could solve them. But let me start by telling you a little bit about me and how this whole journey started. I funded my college through small business enterprise that I created at the time. And after college, I started a number of businesses, and some of them I sold, some of them I bought, some of them succeeded, and some of them didn't work out very well. So I developed extensive amount of experience in the area of business and business strategies. But one area I've neglected to look at is wealth building and asset protection in my own situation. In one of those companies, I did have a partnership that did not work out very well. And I had a lot of issues with that particular partner that led to the breakup of the company and the degree of losses to me. Ultimately, I recovered, but the journey was fraught with a lot of pain. And during that process, I learned a lot about what to do and how to prevent some of these issues that I faced. And I'm here to bring you some of those issues so that you won't face them yourself. So the subject of partnerships obviously could be very vast. Today, we're going to be focusing on what would happen if your partner was to be incapacitated or die. And what would happen with regards to the people that are in their lives that would have a stake in their partnership with you. And to give you a specific example, let's say it's the wife or a member of the family or numerous other people that have some sort of interest in that particular partner that was incapacitated or died. So to help you understand some of those issues, what we're going to do is have some case scenarios for you that we're going to discuss to highlight some of those problems. And Brian is going to help me with that. So, Brian, you've worked on many of those issues before. And in some cases, you have situations where there's a corporation or there is a company that's sort of sole proprietor. Can you give us some of those scenarios that you've seen in the past and some that we worked on behalf of some of our clients here in the company?
Yeah, absolutely. We work with many, many different types of business owners, and quite often it's easy to get into business with each other. But the question is as the business continues and grows, and accidentally somebody maybe passes away or becomes disabled and incapacitated, what do we do with the business? How does the business continue on after that? For one example, is we had 2 partners, and they were had a very successful business. Each partner was married, and unfortunately, one of the partners, he loved his Porsche, and unfortunately took a bad turn, and he went right off a cliff. And he left a wife, 3 children, and a business, a thriving business. The question then became, what are we going to do with that individual's part of the business? How's the business going to survive now that 50% of the ownership has passed away? Typically, what people do is in their wills, they transfer all of their assets to their remaining spouse. But in this particular situation, the remaining partner didn't want to have the spouse, and she had no expertise in their business. And at the same time, the spouse didn't want to be in the business. She would rather have some remuneration, the value of the business, so that she can continue on with the children. In this particular situation, they did not have an agreement on what to do if somebody either passed away or was disabled, and it became quite a mess. So that's a problem that can be easily rectified, but you need to know about it. You need to talk about the stuff beforehand.
And we're going to go into some solutions we can propose that they could understand and people can take action with. And I know there's going to be a lot of questions, and that's why we agreed, you and I, early on to open up an office hour for any questions that people would have. We can help them with that because it's a very sort of complex topic. Now, there's some solutions that are simple. Some solutions could be more complex. And if you have any questions on that, you can feel free to give us a call to ask those questions. But in the meantime, I would say, let's take the problem and even flip it a little bit. What if the spouse went to be involved in the business and you have no interest in the spouse involved in the business? That could be another problem that you might face because people come with different personalities. Some people just don't care. Some people do.
No, that's a great point, because the surviving partner, he did not want to have the spouse in the business. Now, in this situation, she didn't want to be in it anyway. But I can easily see where a spouse says, "Hey, I could get in there and run this and make a good income out of it, like my husband did or my wife." It's good to talk about these things earlier before they could happen, so that there is some sort of a plan in place, so that if that situation comes around, it's already set. There's no loose ends.
And that's the problem, I think, Brian, is the conversation is in there. The problem is that a lot of these things get ignored. So it's easy to go in business. And in business, we tend to go day to day, every day, running, charging hard, trying to get things done. The last thing sometimes we think about is some of the things that are so close to us, is so close you can't even see it. It's like trying to read a piece of paper that's so close to your eyes that you can't even read the words, even though it's in front of you. And in some cases, you might see the writing on the wall if something is to happen, but you're too busy addressing them. These issues, when it comes to a partner, it does not just extend to a spouse, it extends to other situations, right, Brian?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. There was a particular case where we had a gentleman had a thriving machine shop, and he was a sole owner too. And he had 50 employees. He passed away, and it got to the point where now what happens to the business? They had a thriving business, they had lots of accounts, and without some sort of documentation on what to do before that happens, it could have easily had one of his senior managers or one of his key employees take over the business. But without the documentation on what to do or planning beforehand, that business virtually just sort of faded out and faded away.
So I think, Brian, right now, just right off the bat, even through your words right now, you gave a little bit of a solution. Part of the solution is the documentation, is creating the agreements. So the one thing you want to take to start with as we go through this conversation here that we're having with you is that to think about documenting and creating agreements that would help you in the event of something like that is to happen. And these are difficult conversations, right, Brian? I mean, it's hard to go to somebody, go, what happens to you if you die? Well, great. What kind of conversation is that?
Yeah, when you're in business and things are really going well, or even just sort of stagnant, but you've done well, you're just thinking about, hey, that business is going to do really well. You're not thinking about, what the future, what can bring in the future, but you need to have some sort of discussion. And we would be happy to have a discussion with you on some of these very difficult topics.
And I think that's what some of the things you do is that you initiate that discussion. You help create that discussion because it is a little bit of a difficult discussion. Almost you have to be a little bit of a therapist, essentially. Would that be close?
Well, there's times where I've found out that, partners get in and they want it and they're on the same track and things of that nature. But then when it comes to, hey, what do I want to do with the business later? During some of our discussions, it comes up with, hey, they go off track and they have two different ideas. So it's important to have those discussions up front. But you're right. A therapist, I haven't really thought of myself as a therapist. I primarily look at myself as asking a lot of questions to find out, pull out of the two or sometimes three or four individuals what their overall objectives are in the long run. Sometimes they talk amongst each other about what their shorter term objectives are, but you also need to talk about what those objectives are in the long run too.
And what are some of the solutions, if we can shed some light? I mean, we talked about one of them, which is setting up agreements, setting up processes, setting up infrastructure.